Look, Chief shoots for him, also known as Owl looks out for him. I put a link to his video speaking with in Congress and regarding treaties in American history. But right in our faces, the most negative things can be turned into hyper positives. For example, others being have been communicated for our founders, including the Native American founders, and what was sustained upon humanity most probably. And all in other words, before America's founders were even born, those behind James Madison and his plan, before he was a president, no one had free speech. If since semi-ancient times, there are proofs that it was a method, and our founders communicated other, like for example, the breaching method as a scientific value inside the communications of our founders. That value is being and has been replaced. Each age and each nature of campus, including fire campuses and medical campuses, and psychiatry itself, formally is recorded criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought, readings of statutes and precedents, roles with their uses of their differences interbranch, and the intelligence tied to them. At the same time, with a whole bunch of other countries, in other words, they leave out black pupils, whites of eyes, when the hyper native nature itself is showing this. And I hope this is not taken as disrespectful. This hat, I apologize. It's not meant to be that way. It was taken that way because Native Americans are 3/3 of our founders, but it's in those how they were grouped. In our group by nature, three ways is distinct from how the breaching method groups them, and then further how the breaching method has other things others ourselves blamed for itself as a scientific value that nature itself shows us and our founders. It's a mistake, for example, to blame things on racism. It is recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed the intelligence community from off the campuses I went, my high school. They have a black guy and black female judge, black white female judges involved with the Michael Roberts. I never had a class with the Michael Roberts or the black guy. Involved also with the Eric Jensen, with state police all along Route 175, and involved with people with the name Caron, involved with people up the street, intelligence families years ago that stole my identity. They act so people could take pictures, make fake exceptions. Criminally foreign influence uses of corners of streets they don't even understand. In other words, and they're educators too. And increasingly, people involved with mayors are involved with this. Overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and more people with a principal upskirt nature involved. Gee. Wethersfield Police have their Facebook page, Hartford Courts and New Britain Superior Court's Facebook page, and New Britain, Connecticut's District Court, involved with a whole bunch of people involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, his neighbor, a whole bunch of people tied to him, Mike Pandolf, and people that had communications with him about me were involved with all sides of criminal and civil cases with foreign and domestic countries, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and their teachers involved also with more predicate acts and names that also have World Trade Center predicate acts roles, interstates and intrastates, intercampuses and intra-campuses. And the same names, when they get caught with this, they're just changing and faking digital and phone evidences. In other words, and they faked conversations with me, Wethersfield Police, when I was a kid. Wasn't at all. And then they pretended so as an adult too, lying about me as an adult. And as an adult too, they attached me to fake conversations. They never had a sentence of conversation in my life with one of the older brother apparently of Eric Mendez. Increasingly involved people with the state judicial branch offices of Wethersfield, Connecticut, near the town line of Glastonbury, with the bridge. No, and near the state corrections offices, which is on the Wethersfield Hartford line, which still has other. Wethersfield's a founding location where George Washington had to come with James Madison's plan and the founders behind him, which are also Native American. But everyone had to hide their roles, countering the human fact, human nature breaching method that had been sustained through all differences, use/test of collusions with itself and pretending other or sensing for itself. In other words, nature itself shows us that there has all sides of criminal and civil cases, the lawyers, the courts themselves, and the news and their sources, and the interbranch themselves, and the intelligence tied to them, the difference of them are for a whole bunch of their shared off campuses, on off campuses, thinking and speaking together while having been used remotely by a hyperforeign that needs to be hide behind others' defenses of blaming other things, others ourselves, for example, right where our founders and nature itself communicates for us to blame a human fact treatment nature breaching method, a predicate acts with facts delivery system method that is replacing all that comes with the revelations where we have black pupils, whites of eyes, and a breaching method reassigned what nature communicates with us. Nature and all exceptions show that it's only nature as criminal insidiousness, what has been speaking, in other words, about these colors, leaving out what nature's answers with it and changing them, while leaving out what our founders also communicated about this. See, none could see the whites of eyes yet. In other words, don't shoot people. In other words, we're in a semi-ancient trap. There are proofs before Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492. Already, this had been perfected. It had forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded names as the phenomenon of countries. Had forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded them to blame other things, others ourselves, as the names of the human species body, of individual bodies. Simultaneously forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to defend and use those names as systems tactical ulterior from the hypernative one. And this breaching method knew that nature would demonstrate that. And increasingly people would say, well, that's not my, because no one wanted those collusions. But it made exceptions. It made the whole value nature systems tactically denatured, everyone eating its food. Everyone gets some water in a plastic bottle. Interstate, sickly distinctly. It is worse. It has been consciously maintained, worse than just obfuscated, but consciously obfuscated. Each age of American history and what our nature shows us. Before I ever heard of Native American, we are shown this by nature. I was born Hartford, Wethersfield, with where George Washington had to come with James Madison's plan to counter-extort right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War, to force the English to break from their roles to an extent with the internationally monitored conversations that were involved with the torture, extortions, slavery method, three ways manifest, fact, treatment, nature-oriented one, therefore physically. And it was exploiting how we are a value/value progression system, and hyper-additionally with where and how nature uses how we are hyper-additionally ground its identity relationship to the water. We have been systems this tactical terror from its own. So these are great impositions upon Native Americans. Only an individual, including a tribe, only an individual could defend the order of the finite. And in other words, plus, nature shows us how it is about the appreciation of itself as the hyper-additional nature here, where it is not us and it is not the other species' bodies. Why and how the totally different species have two eyes. So there's a hyper-additional identity of value here scientifically, it's identity of simultaneous nature because we are distinct from the other species bodies, but we are non-distinct from them. And we are simultaneous, but again, for that further hyper-simultaneous that we can discern to an extent. And where we can discern that with any subject, it comes with its complete identity relationship to itself, and the value of that as three ways, increasing as value, as the distinct identity of hyper-invisible but still discernible through all ways, not denying the slightest sequence shifts. For example, not denying the value of the order, the difference between the finite, smallest finite detail that we could or could not grapple with, or the order of the finite itself. And that being, what we are showing is with any subject, it comes, its complete identity relationship to itself, and the only increasing value of that, hypernated pure. And so we are showing that when we see those mountains, it looks like they took down mountains, and including in the desert of northern Africa or in Egypt. In other words, and what is now America and Mexico, because of how this is a name game. And then it needs to highlight progression, so others needs to do that too. To blame other things, others ourselves, for things caused by people's roles with itself. Don't forget, it made those crazy laws, internationally minor conversations, and possession / hyperpossession over the sense and sensibilities, to use John Austin's phrase, of everyone. In other words, in the South and the North were still roles, with that breaching method entrenched more than 13 colonies, and sickly distinctly northern colonies and southern colonies with slavery, but also sickly non-distinctly. And where and how that was against everyone non-distinctly, rather than self-value that, it has been used remotely. The counters to it were used collusion /S, where and how it counts many ways, physically, but also fact treatment nature oriented wise. So that means to come out of nowhere, to make evolution's fruits gifts means out of nowhere. But we have to be on the same page as an entire species body system. And even countries A through Z, that's why they all have problems with borders, and they have the abilities to protect all this time to speak about security, but we still have suburbs that were designed for torture, extortion, and slavery, tactically denatured for everyone to need food from other systems. Everyone to need jobs, narratives by jobs, incapable of being able to defend themselves in the nature debate without relying upon predicate acts with facts, mixed natures of organized crime methods, and collusions that were fit originally and still to what really keeps the worst use /S and furtherance of overt criminal enterprises and private ones and terrorists. And the World Trade Center predicate acts. Connecticut's Channel 3 News put me in fake conversations with themselves and with others about the World Trade Center attack. The people they did this with, a whole bunch of people tied to them and their intelligence, and the ones next to them. They're also next to Fox Connecticut News, next to WTNH. There are also people with names next to campuses attached to fake ties, fake natures of ties to me, and news people and their sources planting at corners of streets evidences. Increasingly, people tied to probate court judges and on off the state judicial branch offices and corrections offices, but a certain type of sick type of judge tied to the psychiatry. And the prisons, too, increasingly involved with crimes with their patients and criminals before they were caught. And to force them, too, like a principal child abuser. And to cover them, keep them hiding details like sequence shifts and collusions with having blamed other things other than themselves. And all sides, they paint arrays on descriptions of instances, and the people are looking and why they're looking, and they just the whole fake scenes they're putting in databases. Then they're having to hide that from presidents. In other words, not just the FBI support. Whiting Forensics is involved also with Facebook page of a principal upskirt nature, involved with more sexual and medical offenders of kids, And then they mix their own kids' pictures involved, like one with the name Brendan Leahy, more than one with the name Brendan Leahy, and women in their family, and one's associated with them at Harvard Hospital's Institute of Living. All kind of identity theft frauds, fake transcripts, wire crime, mail crimes, all kinds of legal scams. Get them on paper. They have judges and prosecutors speaking fake things and delusions and records with them. In other words, so interstates, more World Trade Center attack roles were involved. And everyone's failing to communicate. Everyone's still being self-body roles when fighting with each other about realizing you guys are replacing what our founders communicated for us to communicate for themselves. In other words, in the three natures of America's founders, before America's founders were even born, forced by nature itself. And then, in other words, because no one knew what to do with this. People had to then disagree about what to do when they have to do act anyway. And everyone else didn't know what to do. Those three natures of founders at every country. The whole, every name has individually grouped and together its identity more and more as an individual grouped, as each individual grouped and simultaneous to human value in our syntax. We can't get it right until we get this first. So the three natures of America's founders, and then again behind Native and coupled with James Madison, all the colonists who coupled with the value. This is why president / chief. In other words, the difference of that when you speak as if one's Native American or not. I'm not Native American. In other words, if someone brings up the difference, they have the differences interbranch in the intelligence. They act and make arrays of sides and put fake motivations to hide what came first. They have remote uses of black families involved with predicate acts with databases and people with the name Bayrock involved with the location, involved with state police and intelligence families mixed with the different police forms and their family members and courts planting evidences at and next to the campuses, but also at the same time with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. And then they're hiding live progressions by typing things on social media dishonestly. And in other words, affecting people's reception by others. They're all mass identity theft, fraud, slanders roles, including interbranch and the intelligence tied to them at countries A through Z. Here, Anthony, vaccines, please get them. WFSB and off the fake conversations about the World Trade Center attack. And I want their confessions regarding the confessions of the principal child defender that they hid from the parents with some of the parents too. By lying to them and having the parents repeat fake things, they made them self-value rules with abuses of their own kids. And why I have to use their names. Get them on paper, one name in sequence into branch. They forge names, switch names, use all kinds of predicate acts methods through times where they're sticking fake things in databases, prepare the minds, vaccines. They're in trouble now. They should fear God.